The World Health Organization, that beacon of global well-being, struggles to define the fine line between mental stability and, well, the opposite. We all experience emotional and physical overload, the weight of anxiety, the pressure of expectations, and the burden of responsibility. But sometimes these pressures build, simmering beneath the surface, threatening to boil over. Have you ever caught yourself in the midst of frustration, feeling like you were losing control? Like the world was closing in and your nerves were frayed wires, sparking with the slightest touch. Today we're going to talk about recognizing the warning signs, the subtle signals our bodies send when we're teetering on the edge. We'll delve into the research of Professor Sarah M. Esteman and the insights of psychotherapist of Day and Board to understand the 10 signs that you might be on the brink of a nervous breakdown. Have you ever found yourself in a room full of people, feeling utterly alone? Like everyone around you is speaking in a foreign language? A language of utter incompetence and frustrating absurdity? It's easy to fall into the trap of believing that everyone else is the problem. But before you start building conspiracy theories about the collective stupidity of mankind, take a step back. Breathe. Ask yourself this: have they always been this way? The truth is, people are rarely inherently idiotic. The key is to recognize when your perception of others is being clouded by your own internal turmoil. When stress takes hold, it warps our perception, magnifying the flaws in others while minimizing our own. So the next time you find yourself surrounded by idiots, take a moment to examine your own state of mind. The past. It can be a comforting refuge, a source of valuable lessons, a reminder of how far we've come. But it can also be a treacherous trap, a bottomless pit of regret, shame, and what-ifs. We all revisit past events, replaying conversations, analyzing decisions, wondering how things might have been different. But when these memories become intrusive, when they hijack your thoughts and dictate your emotions, it's a sign that you're not simply reflecting on the past, you're reliving it. Obsessive thoughts, particularly about past events, are often a symptom of anxiety. Your mind, overwhelmed by the present, seeks solace in the familiar, even if that familiar ground is riddled with potholes and landmines. The key is to recognize when your relationship with the past has become unhealthy. Remember, the past is gone. It's time to let it go. Communication. It's the bedrock of human connection, the bridge that spans the chasm between our individual islands of experience. But when stress tightens its grip, that bridge begins to crumble, leaving us stranded, our voices lost in the void. Have you ever felt like you were speaking through a mouthful of cotton wool, your words muffled, distant, inaudible even to your own ears? Stress can manifest in the most peculiar ways, and our voices are often the first casualties. When anxiety takes hold, our bodies go into fight or flight mode, diverting resources away from non-essential functions like speech. If you're finding it increasingly difficult to communicate effectively, if people are constantly asking you to repeat yourself, or if you feel like your voice is betraying you, it's time to pay attention. Your body is trying to tell you something. It's time to listen. We all crave acceptance, that warm embrace of belonging, but sometimes the fear of judgment can warp our perception. Have you ever felt the weight of 1,000 eyes upon you? This is the insidious nature of anxiety. People have their own lives, their own insecurities. Breathe, relax, let go of the illusion of the spotlight. Social interaction, the lifeblood of civilization, the source of joy, connection, and shared experience. But what happens when the very act of being around other human beings feels like an insurmountable challenge, an exhausting performance that leaves you drained and depleted? When anxiety tightens its grip, the world outside our comfort zone can transform into a minefield of potential triggers. Crowds become suffocating, conversations feel like verbal sparring matches, and even the simplest interactions require Herculean levels of self-control. This, my friends, is the cruel paradox of anxiety. It thrives on isolation, yet it makes the very act of connecting with others feel like an impossible feat. Vulnerability is not weakness, It's the key to authentic connection. And while taking that first step out of our comfort zones can feel terrifying, the rewards are immeasurable. Relaxation, that elusive state of being, where the mind is quiet, the body is at ease. But for some, relaxation is a foreign language, a skill they never learned. Have you ever found yourself physically at rest, but your mind is a whirlwind of activity? This is the cruel irony of anxiety. It thrives on our inability to unwind, to let go. We wear our exhaustion like a badge of honor. The truth is, our inability to relax is not a sign of virtue. It's a cry for help, begging us to slow down, to breathe, to simply exist. The world is a tapestry woven with an infinite variety of threads. Some threads are bright and vibrant, filled with joy, beauty, and wonder. Others are dark and somber, representing loss, pain, and disappointment. And then there are the annoyances, those tiny, persistent irritations that, like mosquitoes on a warm summer night, buzz around our heads, disrupting our peace and testing the limits of our patience. For most of us, annoyances are like pebbles in our shoes. We notice them, we might even curse them under our breath, but eventually we learn to ignore them, to focus on the path ahead. But for those struggling with anxiety, these minor inconveniences can take on an outsized significance, casting a long dark shadow over even the brightest of days. This, my friends, is the insidious nature of anxiety. It magnifies the negative, distorting our perception, transforming minor irritations into insurmountable obstacles. Conversation, the lifeblood of human connection, a dance of words, ideas, and shared experiences. But for those grappling with anxiety, even the most innocuous conversations can become minefields of potential triggers, sending them spiraling down rabbit holes of negativity and despair. Imagine this. You're at a party, a social gathering, a casual get-together with friends. Someone approaches you, a warm smile on their face, and utters those two innocuous words. How are you? A simple question, right? But instead of responding with the usual pleasantries, you find yourself launching into a detailed account of all that is wrong with your life. This, my friends, is the dark side of anxiety. It has a knack for hijacking conversations, for transforming even the most benign interactions into therapy sessions. It whispers doubts into our ears, convincing us that our problems are too big, too overwhelming, too much for anyone else to handle. The world can feel like a chaotic, unpredictable place. A whirlwind of sensory overload, unexpected events, and potential dangers lurking around every corner. It's no wonder then that we seek comfort in routine, in the familiar rhythms of daily life, in the predictability of our own little rituals. For most of us, these rituals are like comforting background music, adding a sense of order and structure to our days. But for those struggling with anxiety, these rituals can become less about comfort and more about control. They morph from harmless habits into rigid rules, from soothing routines into elaborate ceremonies designed to ward off the perceived dangers of the outside world. Suddenly, you find yourself unable to leave the house without checking the stove multiple times, convinced that you've left it on and your home will go up in flames. You wash your hands compulsively, terrified of germs, convinced that every doorknob, every handshake, every surface is contaminated with invisible threats. We all crave approval, that warm glow of validation, the reassurance that we are enough. But for those with anxiety, the pursuit of approval becomes an exhausting, all-consuming obsession. You pour your heart into a project, convinced you've achieved perfection. And then the feedback arrives. A lukewarm response, and that dreaded phrase, "It's good." But the insatiable hunger for approval roars back to life. This is the cruel trap of anxiety. Finding peace in a chaotic world. Life can be a roller coaster ride, full of unexpected twists, exhilarating highs, and stomach-churning lows. And while we can't always control the external forces that buffet us this way and that, we can learn to navigate the internal landscape of our minds, to develop resilience, to find moments of peace amidst the chaos. Recognizing the signs of anxiety is the first step towards reclaiming our power, towards breaking free from the grip of fear and worry. Do you have any tips or tricks that help you navigate the choppy waters of stress? Share your wisdom in the comments below, and let's create a community of support. And don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to Psyche 180 for more insights into the fascinating world of the human mind.